episode 171 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for a virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So, just as a little preface, Catherine and I actually haven't spoken in a little bit because she has been on a wonderful vacation.
Yes.
So this is our first, reuniting after she's been gone for a bit. So, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, we did a stockpile of some episodes before we left. I left, sorry. And, yeah, so I just got back from a vacation to the UK. See?
Yeah, and she was gone for, a million years.
I was, and I did a Pride and Prejudice tour. Not really. It was our own spin on one.
Do they have? Oh,
they should.
If they don't, they should.
They could easily do it. So I'm sure they have to be somewhere. But it's actually it's harder to find, I guess, what you're looking for. And the UK is pretty big. So
it is, yes, it's quite large.
One day I did have to drive 5.5 kilometers because we went from Scotland to the Peak District to Matlock.
Hours, you mean?
5.5 hours? What did I say?
Kilometers, which is
kilometers.
Not fair at all.
5.5 kilometers. Yes, I had to drive 5.5 kilometers. No, the wild thing. So wait, the wild thing is, so the UK, they drive on the left side of the road, which
yes,
we already knew. That's fine. But they're in miles. Their cars are in miles. The speed limit's in miles. Why? I didn't think that was, I was shocked. And maybe it's just, ignorance on my part. But I thought the whole thing was the U.S. were the only ones that did that. Not the only ones, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, they get made fun of all the time for being the only ones on the system that they're on, and everyone else is on, the metric system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is weird that here in Canada we do kilometers. And,
yeah.
And
well,
they do.
New Zealand was kilometers, too, because I've been there and I've driven there, and they drive on the left side, and they're kilometers, and they're also, Canada is...
Yes, yeah.
We're all from... We all... were stolen from the UK.
Yeah, we were all colonized by the UK, yeah.
So it's just, it shocked me that it was miles per hour. And then the speed limits were just ridiculous. You're going down a windy road and it's 50, 60 miles an hour. And I'm like, how are you supposed to drive this fast and not crash into somebody? I mean, wild times. But I did go to the house that was Pemberley from the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. And I've got to say that made me very emotional. And it's beautiful. And they actually use a lot of the house in the original movie, the original house in the movie, which was kind of surprising to walk in and see some of the rooms that you're this is exactly like the movie, which, it's not often that, because they use the exterior, you assume they're going to use a set for the interior or something, but the ceiling is actually the same, and I forget her name, but Veiled, anyway, if you've seen Pride and Prejudice 2005, you know the Veiled statue. She's also in Chatsworth House, and it's just beautiful. And it was made in 1847 or something, but you can literally see the light through the veil, and it's just amazing, the architecture of art.
Amazing. I love that. I know. When we went to Italy, we went to a lot of museums, and just thinking about especially sculpture, obviously yes, paintings too, but when I look at sculptural work, it's even more amazing because, like, they chiseled that and made it look like someone's face peeking out of a veil, and, like, one mistake and it's ruined, and, like, they're carving it out of this, like, marble or granite or stone.
One piece.
It's, like, so crazy to think how they get it looking like this smooth, thin material, like...
Yeah, and it lasts now, like, 100 and almost 80 years.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Like, I can envision painting something. I can't do it, but I can envision the process of painting something.
Yes.
But, like, looking at a piece of wood and being able to chisel it away, or a piece of granite, like, you take something off, it's the negative space part of it that I think is wild.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, I guess we kind of took this in a bit of a different direction than we had planned before we started, but I think that's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's all good.
Anyway, yeah, so Catherine just did, like, my dream vacation, but I said that I would wait until my kids are a little bit older, and then all four of us could go.
Mm.
But, like, I didn't want to take them to the UK and, like, haul them to, like, the Tower of London and, like, the Globe Theatre and, like, to all these, like, really cool old places that hold so much history without them being old enough to sort of appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, right now they're at the age where it's like, ooh, Disney World.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, they want to do, like, fun things. And not that the UK wouldn't be fun, but, like, it's not the same kind of fun.
Yeah. I feel like it might not be, like, you could do it not that much further from now. Like, I feel like Juliet is, like, she'd be into it.
Maybe. I think Gabby would probably be more into it. She's older. Like, just because she's older and sort of, like, she likes things from...
Yes, that's true, too, yeah. Well, especially... Yeah, you and Gabby went to see the Juliet. Was it... What is the name of the music? Was it Juliet and Juliet?
We all went and seen Anne Juliet.
Okay.
Juliet actually loved it.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think she might not be old enough to...
I think she would appreciate the Shakespeare bit just for the fact that that's the same name as me. But,
yeah. Which is pretty cool, but...
Although it's funny because she already knows that the spelling is different.
Oh, really?
Like, my name is the French spelling. Because it is. I gave her the TTE. I didn't want her to have the tragic Juliet Bax. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, fair.
I didn't want to name her after a tragic character, even though I did. So her name has the French spelling, Juliette. Whereas Juliet from Romeo and Juliet, it's Juliet.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
Besides the point. So, yeah. I hope to get there one day, but when I'll take my kids and then I'll force them to do what you did and, like, go to Pemberley in Derbyshire.
Yes, basically. It's just wild because, like, the grounds of the house, they barely show any of it in the movie, but you're like, this is actually, like, I guess people lived here at some point and they just created these grounds and they're just so big. You can walk forever. It's like, this is pretty wild. Yeah. And it's not super cheap to just, like, get on the property and you're like, this is... But now it is a charity, I guess.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So it's like, that makes it obviously better. But yeah, it's interesting. Definitely interesting. So yeah. So anyway, that's just an update, I guess, on my life. And in the past few weeks, you've gotten closer to school being done. And we're jumping into June. And the weather here hasn't been awful.
It has not been awful the past, like, few days.
Yeah, it's been warmer than I expected. I'll say that for sure. So hopefully it sticks that way and we don't get any more snow. Yeah.
No more snow. I want a heat wave.
Yeah. I'm going to make an appointment to get my winter tires off this week.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. So, yeah. Just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy.
Okay, so we are picking up where we left off. This week, it is week 6 with Kingdom of Ash. We're reading chapter 62 to 74 today. So, again, it's been a while since we actually, discussed.
I was just going to say, I'm impressed if you're just going straight into this, because I could never.
So, I will say that, most of our crowd have been reunited. For the most part.
Yeah.
Aelin, Rowan, their crew have now been reunited with Chaol and Irene and everybody from Tower of Dawn. And we read last week that Anielle, Chaol's homeland, was being attacked by Morath. Aelin and crew went to help, and the Cognate came to help, and they managed to, take out the army. However, the army of Morath decided they were going to release the dam that's in Anielle and, kill everybody on the battlefield, which would have wiped out a ton of soldiers. Including Lorcan, who had, essentially just, in his mind was well, I'm just gonna die.
Yeah.
He was gonna sacrifice himself, and Aelin was fuck no, you're not. And went out to save him. Then the wave was coming. They weren't gonna make it. But Aelin decided to step up and use the power that she'd been holding back for weeks and weeks and weeks. She used it to essentially obliterate the wave and turn it to steam as it was coming around her. So she saved everybody. Yay!
But also you're oh shit, there's no way she can get this much power again.
Yeah. So she was obviously saving it to kill Maeve with, but then decided that maybe saving people is a better way to go.
Yeah, but it was also, it was kind of calculated, because it was also because the Coggins army was we haven't decided where we're going to go yet. Impress us. And you're ugh, seriously?
Yeah, they wanted to be impressed, and now they're impressed, I would think.
Yeah.
I guess on everyone else's end, Aedion finally realized he's been an asshole, which I hate so much. And I don't know if it's this week or next week, but we finally sort of get I don't know if we want to call it the reunion, but they finally start talking to each other, but they don't address anything.
Yeah. Which is, I think, a theme of this week.
Ugh.
But, I will say, maybe, this is a hopeful maybe, but, so, remember that list of books that I sent you that Sarah J Maas is coming out with? So it's, ACOTAR 6,
yes.
Crescent City 4, Unknown New Series 1.
Woo.
And a novella of Throne of Glass. Maybe the novella will just be everyone working through their fucking trauma from this book that they haven't worked through, because it ends the day that they're gonna start processing their traumas.
Yeah.
So maybe the novella is just gonna be their trauma.
Yeah, it could.
It's not. But that's what I
will say that I do hope the novella is going to be an after everything has happened, not an in-between.
Yeah,
you know what
unless
I mean? I hope it's not. I don't even know if I want Elena and Gavin's little story.
Oh, not. Do you mean Elite and Lorcan?
No, I mean Elena and Gavin.
Okay, yeah. No, I give zero fucks about that. I mean, for the people in the universe that need it, I will.
You want to see what's more.
Well, I'm fine. I was actually fine with that moment.
I didn't.
We'll get there.
Either. We will get there.
But for the people, if that's what it is, if it's literally a full novella, I would laugh and find it amazing. And no, if they gave us no warning about what it was about and just dropped a novella that was like, how long are novellas? 150 pages of just that.
Yeah.
I think it would be hilarious and I would find it good.
Probably, yeah. Anyway, we will get there, but...
Yes.
Anyway, so...
Sorry.
So, Aedion and Lysandra... Aedion's figured out that he's been a massive dick. But,
and he apologized.
Did he?
Yeah, last week. Remember?
I thought he just sort of... I thought he just sort of, in his mind, was like, oh my god, I've been a dick. And it's like, yes, you have.
No, she woke up and he was like...
Oh, right.
Yeah. He was like, you almost died and you never would have known that I was wrong. And she's like, it took me almost dying for you to realize I was a human person that could die? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And we were like, yes, Lysandra, preach!
Yeah, true story. Anyway, and then on Dorian and Manon's side, trying to remember what they even did. Oh, right. Manon confronted the three matrons, killed the Yellow Legs one. The Blue Blood Petra's mom ran away, and she was like, okay, peace out, bye. And then
she let her go.
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
She was, okay, peace out, bye.
Yeah.
And then her grandmother, they fought a little bit, and then
she ran.
Her grandmother was like, oh shit, I'm not gonna win, and then she ran away. So then all the Krakens crowned Manon their queen.
Yeah. Which I actually love that scene. It's a great scene.
I do too, yeah. It's good.
It's just been a little bit, so.
It's just been a while. So... this week we're actually starting back with Dorian, because of course, the literal last scene of last week was Aelin passing out from using so much magic. So it's like, well, we can't pick up right there. So we're actually going back to Dorian right now. So after the battle with the three matrons, the Krakens plus the 13 fly together to the Fangs, to this other secret campsite, and they're sort of on high alert because they're worried that the matrons, the two surviving ones anyway, are gonna come back. They're gonna clap back.
Yeah. It is wild that 3 of them just showed up and were like, we can take all of these witches, and they couldn't even take one.
But I think that it's an honor thing of they went in to confront Manon, and the 3 of them thought they could take Manon. I don't think the intention for a fight like that would be that all the other witches would rush in and swarm them. I think that's sort of an honor.
I know, but I just don't think that her 13 would let her be killed. And by her 13, I mean her 12, because she's part of the 13.
I mean, they all stood by ready for her to kill Asterin.
I guess. Yeah.
For the sake of, those were the rules.
Yeah, maybe. But they're just already, they've already fucked the rules at this point.
I guess, yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess they've made this little camp. People are, on watch. Dorian is in his tent trying to sleep when Manon comes in. And she's still wearing her crown. Mm-hmm. And Dorian's like, you are allowed to take it off, you know. And, she just mentions that, it's not as heavy as she thought it would. And I think that sort of goes more towards, the responsibility and the, the duty that goes along with it is not as heavy as she thought it would be, more so than the crown itself.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like she's already had responsibility of feeling like she is the heir. Yeah. More so than, like, if you look at her versus Dorian's trajectory, like, he was a fuckboy. Mm-hmm. His dad was fucking shit up. And he was doing nothing. But hers, she was doing things. They were not right. When, like, she realized, hey, we have free will and we can like things. But she was trying to do what she thought the right thing was that she had been, like, taught. And, like, it's kind of like a cult.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, like, it's just interesting to look at their different timelines of, like, he just stood by and she changed because she realized that she was going in the wrong direction. And he did too, I guess. But, like...
she has had hundreds of years, though.
Oh, yeah.
To his 20-ish.
Yeah.
22?
But if we're gonna call them equal, I guess, which we kind of have to, which is kind of fun. This, like, age difference that is, like...
Yes, it's the opposite.
Tip-turvy.
Like yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, she tells him that she thought it would be more satisfying seeing her grandmother run, than what it was. Like, I guess she wasn't satisfied with beating her the way she thought she would be. And then she asks Dorian how he felt when he killed his father, and, like, was he satisfied? And he just tells her that he felt rage and hate. And then she just says, like, would it have been better if I killed her? Mm-hmm. But Dorian says, like, maybe, but maybe it's better that you didn't, because she's more humiliated now, and that way she's not acting like a martyr, and the Iron Teeth are not sort of rallying in her honor. So, like, this is better.
Yeah.
She then sort of, like, they're sort of having their heart-to-heart moment, and she apologizes for getting mad at him about his plans to go to Morath, which, like, happened the other day after he was talking to Kaltane, she got mad at him. Yeah. And she just says, like, I assume that you're gonna leave tomorrow, and he says he is. And she just tells him Morath's a death trap, and none of the 13 can go with him. But he says, like, he knows. And she was like, well, how are you going to get there? And he says that he's learned to make wings of his own, so he's going to shapeshift and fly.
Yeah.
And then she asks him if he's afraid. And he says that he is, but his task is more important than fear. And then we get something that is really not in Manon's character at all.
No.
Which sort of, like, surprised me a little bit. She asks him to stay, and then he tells her he needs a convincing reason. And her response to that is that she doesn't want him to leave. And I found that, like, a little out of character for her. And, like, I understand they're trying to show that, like, she has grown and she's developed a softer side, but, like, it doesn't have to be that soft.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. And, like, then they start to take their clothes off. And they're not quite naked, and she tells him that they could form an alliance between the witches and Aelin. Like, form an alliance between the two of them. And he sort of figures out that she's implying that they should get married.
And which, like, that leap, I was like, oh, I didn't.
I really did not expect that for her character. I would expect it from his character.
But I also... I didn't realize that that's what she was suggesting until he was like, she wants to get married. Yeah. I was like, oh, shit, really? Is that what she said? Because...
But, like, I also just don't understand how their marriage would even work. Because, like, he is the king of Aelin, and she wants to be queen of the Wastes. And, like, they're separate countries. Like, would she just stay in the Wastes, and he would stay in Aelin, and then every little while they'd come hang out? Like, I just, like...
Well, and that's...
Because we're gonna talk about it in a second, because... He says, like, he figures out she means a marriage alliance. And he tells her that she doesn't actually want that and that she doesn't want to be shackled to any man. And she agrees with him. She's like, yeah, you're right. But, like, she, like, says that sort of, she doesn't say, yeah, you're right. She just sort of, he does that thing that books do, where he's like, he could see the truth of it written on her face, that she agreed with him. So, like, he could tell that she agreed. But she tells him out loud that with the strength of Aelin behind her, the Krakens would maybe agree to go to war. So, like, she's thinking of her people and of how to rally more to their cause. But, like, this is what I mean. Like, if they actually got married, he's like, oh, you don't want to be shackled? And I'm like, how would she be shackled if she's living in a different country? Where's the shackle?
Yeah, are you each going to travel every 2 weeks? Also, she has Abraxos, so it's super easy to travel. It's not like Abraxos could go pick Dorian up in Aelin. I don't know how long it takes to get anywhere in this world.
I read ahead because they discuss it near the end that it takes, like, maybe a couple of days. Maybe 3, if we're being... Yeah. 3 days to travel.
So it's a long-distance relationship.
But, like, that's what I mean. Like, her agreeing to marry him, if they still are going to be king and queen of their own spaces and live in their own countries, I don't see how that's much of a shackle.
Oh, yeah.
You know
but
what
it's
I mean?
The same, like, his, in Throne of Glass, the book, like, the queen had her own towers, and the king had his own space. They didn't sleep anywhere near each other. They were rooms and rooms away from each other. A bit different, I guess, if you're trying to put on a united front and, like, at least they're in the same castle, so it looks like they're together. But everybody knows that, like, none of them are actually talking to each other. None of them are actually sleeping in the same beds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think it's this great shackle that he's, like, releasing her from by, like, not agreeing to this. Like, he's so righteous, and he's like, this is what you want, and this is what
you want.
Yeah, and it's like,
want this. It's like she wouldn't have suggested it if she didn't want it, at least in some part.
Yeah, maybe have a conversation with her about what she actually wants.
Telling her what she wants.
Yeah.
Typical man.
She's, what, 5 to 10 times older than him? I can't remember. Is she 100, 200? You know, she's, you know, he's 20. She's 5 to 10 times older than him.
Yeah.
I think she knows what she wants.
Yeah, agreed.
And if it's him, he's not gonna... Well, actually, we don't know that yet, I guess. He could live longer because he's got magic. That's true. If not, also, there's a fucking war, and he's ready to sacrifice himself. He's not gonna live another 5 months. So, if she wants him for the next 5 months, maybe that's what she's saying.
That's true. So he just thinks that, like, he would love for her to be his queen, but he knows she would eventually hate him for caging her. And I'm just like, eye rolls on eye rolls on eye rolls, of course, making him the noble one.
Yeah.
And she then says that she would make that sacrifice because, like, she does, he said he could see it written on her face that she agrees with him. So, like, she says it. She does think that marrying him would be some form of sacrifice because she's not going to be, like, all on her own again. But Aelin, since Aelin is willing to die to end this conflict, Aelin should not be the one to bear all the sacrifice alone. And, like, realistically, getting married versus having to die.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit different. Yeah. So, like, the fact that she's like, oh, I'll sacrifice spending my life with this, like, hot...
Not her life, because she is immortal.
Spend maybe a tenth of my life with this hottie with a body that has phantom hands, like, rats.
Yeah. And eventually just separate and nobody'll notice. Like,
anyway, Dorian then, like, sort of touches her scar that her grandmother gave her and thinks that he would not have showed mercy to Manon's grandmother today. And Manon admits to him then that she's afraid he'll come back as someone she won't recognize and she'll have to kill him. So she's worried that he'll come back infected by Valg.
Which...
Valid.
Yeah, it is, but he was infected by Valg before, and she helped him out of it unknowingly without even trying. So, like, they could actually have a full-on conversation about the fact that he's like, hey, your eyes scare the fuck out of the Valg, so if I do come back, Valg, have a conversation with me, and I'll bleed whatever color you want me to.
Yeah.
Like...
That's true.
But we're not going to get that.
No, we're not. She asks then if he would stay if they made this alliance, but he obviously doesn't answer.
Yeah.
And he instead just starts touching her and kissing her, and she starts to take her crown off, but he tells her to leave it on.
Of course he does.
I don't like that.
It's the same as, like, when someone's like, when in movies, they're like, leave your heels on.
Yeah, but, like...
Nobody would be in the house with their heels on anyway.
But, like, I will say I would almost forgive the heels comment. Like, if it were a pair of shoes or something like that, I'd probably be okay with it a little bit more, because it's just, like, in their mind, it's just increasing your attractiveness. Like, it's just hot. To me, the crown is a symbol of power and a symbol of prestige and a symbol of the title. So the fact that he wants her to leave that on means he's attracted to the power and the title, which I don't like.
Oh. But...
That's where my brain went with it anyway.
Yeah. Does it make it a little bit better that he also has the crown and the power and the title, so he's, like, equal?
But he doesn't have it on.
No. But he is, he's the prince or the king or whatever the fuck we're calling him now. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But if she takes it off, it's not going to be as lighty and shiny anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And that's cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do get what you're saying. It does seem like it. But... I don't think Dorian is one to go for power, so it just seems out of character for him.
Yeah, I know. This whole scene is very out of character for both of them, I feel.
And this is one of those things, like, think you could just snip, snip, snip.
But I guess it was trying to show that, like, they're connected.
And they are.
Like, that they're developing a relationship. And
yeah.
It's, like, serious enough that Manon is offering to get married.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then they have sex. So next we go to Manon's point of view, and she knows that he's not gonna stay, but they cuddle for the night anyways.
Which is new development,
yes.
Because they don't cuddle. She's not a cuddler.
She's not a cuddler, no.
Not like other girls. And I say that in a completely reflectory way that I always thought that I wasn't a cuddler. So I'm not saying that in like a bitchy way.
I am definitely not a cuddler. I was like at the beginning, but now I'm like, nope, I need to go to sleep now.
Yeah. I always was like, I hate cuddling. And then now I'm like, oh, I can cuddle for a second. And then I'm going to roll over this way. And then I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah. Anyway, in the morning, she just wakes up and he's gone with the 2 keys.
You're like, how does he sneak out on a witch? Does she have magic hearing?
She must have been very sleepy.
Such a sleepy little baby.
Yeah. So we go over to Aedion's point of view. So they are in the middle of retreating to try and get away from Morath's army because they are not doing well. So They are keeping their troops in line as they are marching to the banks of the Florin River. And they organize the lines, like, ready to sort of make their final stand. They don't have anywhere else to go. And they hear Morath's bone drums getting closer. And Aedion asks Ren to do him a favor, to call for aid. And Aedion, he's like, I am no one now, like, because he's not the commander anymore, since Darrow stripped him of that title. So he says, Ren is still Lord Alsbrook, and he can send messengers in every direction and call for help. And just say, Terracin calls for aid.
Yeah.
And he thinks to himself, like, technically only Aelin or Darrow can do that, but he just doesn't care anymore. He's just going to say
And also, Darrow would say that Aelin can't. Because...
Yes. Yeah, he would. Ren asks, like, will anyone even come? Because nobody came to help us 10 years ago. And Aedion's like, maybe not. And there might be nothing left for them to defend when they get here, but, like, do it anyway.
Yeah.
So Ren, like, sort of doesn't want to leave, but, like, Aedion's like, it's an order, now go. So he does. And Aedion then joins the front line with the Bane as the Morath army approaches. And, like, it's going back and back and back, the amount of soldiers. And way, way back, they can see a witch tower there that's going to take them out when it gets closer. And he sort of knows that their deaths are all on him. That, like, he is the one that sort of defied Darrow's order. And he's like, if we had listened to Darrow, the entire army would be alive right now, because Darrow had ordered them back to Orinth, and he defied that and snuck out all the forces during the night.
Yeah, I do think, like, I want to give him a bit of grace, because all of the other lords and, like, all of the other allies agreed with him. So they were also wrong. And, the actual lords were the, like, minority of what they should do, and they're also not fighting. So, like, as much as you're like, yeah, it kind of is, it's all, like, if Galen and, like, Rowan's cousins, who are hundreds of years old, we're assuming, I don't know, maybe thousands, like, if they all thought the same thing, can't blame him too much. But he's in his, I hate myself because I need to redeem myself
because
for...
he was a dick.
Yeah. For the first half of this book.
Ugh, I hate it. So he sees Lysandra further down the line, and she's in her ghost leopard form. She's by Prince Galen. And he feels really guilty that she is going to die here. And he hopes he dies first, so he doesn't have to see her die. And I'm like, you literally could have killed her the other day when you shoved her outside in the snow and nothing but a cloak.
Not a feeling about it. He did not give a single fuck about it. That's a red flag. Yeah. That's something I could never forgive.
I hate it so much. So they shoot a volley of arrows, and Morath responds in kind, shooting something at them. But Morath doesn't just shoot arrows, but heads, because they're evil for evil's sake.
Which also reminds me of Lord of the Rings.
Yes. This 100%.
Literally, this scene happens in Lord of the Rings. And not to jump back to Lord of the Rings every time, but we have to.
Yeah, so Aedion, like, looks at the heads, and they have helmets on them that have Ansel of Briarcliff's wolf insignia on them. And she's been promising that her army is going to meet up with them. And Aedion figures out, like, this is it. Like,
yeah.
this is her army that never showed up because they were killed. So, that's unfortunate. So Morath's army, like, runs at them then, and, like, they're all getting ready to attack, and they know they're all gonna die. And then they hear roaring blasts from his left. So Aedion turns and sees ships upon ships upon ships from Rolf's fleet of Mycenaeans.
He had given completely up on.
Yeah. And so they brought fire lances, and they're spewing the fire at Morath, and Morath is running away because they think that Aelin armed the weapons with magic, not realizing that it's just, like, technology. It's not Aelin's anything. Mm-hmm. So Aedion orders the army to retreat to the boats, and little by little they all end up on the boats. Once on the ship, Lysandra shifts back into human form and actually hugs Rolf. And he tells them, I know. It would have been such a good pairing.
Yeah.
He tells them that he ran into Sol and Ravi on his way, and he was going to, I can't remember if it said he was going to go straight for Orinth, or if he was going to, I can't remember 100% what he said he was going to do. Mm-hmm. But whatever he said he was going to do, Sol and Ravi just intercepted him and sent him their way.
Yeah.
So the next plan is they need to get back to Orinth. And even though Rolf can't take the entire army, which I don't know why, because they're all on the ships right now.
Yeah, I don't.
He's I can't do that.
Literally listened to your section of the book today because anyway, I just did, because I was like, I don't want to forget where we are. But he was like, I can't take all of you all the way to Orinth, but I can take all of you from here, and maybe there's just some land between the water and Orinth, but it's also like, yeah, you can't take a ship on land. We know that. I don't know. It just seemed like an odd way to phrase it.
It is. It is.
It is.
Yeah.
I liked it. I'm a fan.
Sure. So Rolf said he can't take the entire army to Orinth, but he can take Aedion. So of course, Aedion, Lysandra, and like the higher ups are gonna get a ship ride straight to Orinth, and all the rest of the army have to walk, which is bullshit.
Yeah, so are they just ferrying them across this gap? Maybe. I guess that would make some more sense, but it wasn't really laid out well to understand.
No. Rolf, he does ask if she is here, aka Aelin. Yeah. And they say no, but Rolf just says, we'll make do. So.
I love him. I'm a huge fan. I wanted him to end up with anyone in this book, and I hooked on to any second that I could get anything.
Agreed. I also really love him. So Aedion tells them that he would order his troops to march to Orinth, but Lysandra says, oh, I'll go instead. And she turns into a falcon and goes and tells Killian to start marching. And I'm just like, can you not let them rest for a bit? I just feel bad for the soldiers. They're death tired.
Yeah, we literally had a soldier point of view last week, and he was like, well, this is how I die.
Yeah. So she goes, and she comes back, and she still won't talk to Aedion, and instead goes to talk to Ansel and comforts her on the death of her troops. Aedion then asks Rolf how many fire lances he has, and he tells him not enough to outlast a siege. And Aedion knows that the fire lances won't do much good if the witch towers make it to Orinth's walls. So, like, those witch towers really need to be a priority.
Yeah. But, like, what can you do against them?
I don't know. So, we go to Irene's point of view. It's like, finally, we're back to figuring out if Aelin's okay and sort of getting back to her storyline. So it's hours after the battle now, and Irene can't stop thinking about how close they came to death, but they were all saved by Aelin. And she is currently healing some injured soldiers right now. She saw to Aelin and Rowan earlier, but, like, they just both need rest. She did also help heal Lorcan, and that was very hard. Like, she said she had to summon Hafiza to help her because his injuries were so bad. So she goes to get some water. And she hears a horn blare. And she's like, I wonder what that could be. So she goes out to check. And it's the other half of Cashin's army.
Yeah.
So, like, they didn't even have their whole army there.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Which is good.
She also realizes that Cashin's army was pretty lucky, too, that Aelin saved them, because chances are they could have also been affected by the wave, depending on where they were marching.
Yeah. Just like, people should thank her more than they are.
100%. So then we move to Lorcan's point of view, and we haven't really heard from him in a bit, because he's been near death.
Yeah, he gave up.
Yeah. So he wakes up, and Fenris is just sitting there with him. He says he doesn't really feel any pain, but the first thing he does is ask for a lead, of course. He thinks to himself that he remembers, like, Aelin showing off her power, but nothing after that. And Fenris just tells him that Elite is helping with healing in the hall, which sort of makes him feel better enough that he falls back to sleep. When he wakes hours later, he finds Elide sitting near the foot of his bed, but she's, like, sitting at the foot of the bed, but then leaning down over the bed so that her torso is laid across it and she's asleep. He reaches for her hand, and that wakes her up, and they obviously make eye contact. And she asks how he's feeling, and his response is that he feels alive. Thank you, dude. That was very explicit. So, they sort of say, like, oh, you said something on the battlefield. Oh, you said something on the battlefield. And they sort of ask, like, well, did you mean what you said? And both of them say, like, yes. So I guess they declared their love for each other on the battlefield. And now they're confirming, like, that was true. Lorcan tells Elide that he meant every single word and will until the day he fades into the afterlife. And I just think that's so sweet.
It is super sweet, but I'm also like, are you trying to remind us
I know
that she doesn't have...
Ugh. The only thing that also bothers me is that, like, if someone were to tell me this in real life, I would not like it.
Well, that's everything in a book ever.
That's true. She tells him that she loves him too, and says ever since he came back to fight the Ilkin and her uncle with her. And he thinks about how he used to think that there were bigger things than love to worry about. But, like, now that he's in love, he doesn't see anything more important than her.
Yeah.
So she goes to leave to keep helping out in the hall, but he asks her to stay. So she goes to sit by his head, and he tells her that he loves her, and he sits up, which makes his blanket dip. So, of course, she starts, like, checking him out, even though he's, like, still too injured to even do anything about it. But it just reminds me of that movie with Rachel McAdams and Will Ferrell, Eurovision, the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
movie.
I haven't seen it.
It is so good.
I hate Will Ferrell.
I know, but like the reason it's so good is because it is so they just got Eurovision right. They got it correct.
That's fair.
Which is what I really liked about it. Anyway, so just that bit reminds me, because the Rachel McAdams character is constantly in the movie, like they have a thing and she goes, "I'm checking you out," and he always responds with, "I'm checking you out." So when I wrote that, I was like, oh my god, she's checking him out in like
yeah.
Anyway, so like she checks him out and they kiss, and then she just tells him to go back to sleep. And then they kiss again. And it starts to get a little bit hot and heavy. But Lorcan stops it because he's mature and responsible.
Oh, well, he's also healing.
He's also, yeah, like, he was on the verge of death.
He ain't okay still.
So he stops it before it gets too far, and tells Aelin to go to bed. Or to not to go to bed. To go help with the healing until she's ready for bed. And then to come back and share the room. So he's excited to eventually have her and learn how to drive her wild. To show her everything.
Sorry, I forgot what word you were going to say there.
Oh.
And I didn't know you were going to say drive her wild. I thought you were going to say he wants to learn how to drive her. And I was like, that is a different thing.
I mean, is it though?
Well, we don't get it in this book. We'll just say that.
Yeah. So she goes to leave, and he wraps his magic around her ankle to brace it. And she tells him that she missed that, because I guess she can tell the way the magic feels whenever the healing magic is used.
Which I'm like, does that mean something?
So we skip now to Manon's point of view. So she thought that, which I don't understand, because the last time I read, she was like, oh, she knew that he wasn't gonna stay.
Yeah.
But now she's like, oh, I thought he had accepted my offer.
Because they had sex.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's how it always happens. That's what. So bad.
Yeah. So it turns out she's like, oh, he wasn't accepting my offer. He was saying goodbye. And then she thinks that he must know her better than she knows herself to refuse to cage her. Okay? Astrid approaches, knowing that he left, and asks, like, should we go after him? And she doesn't answer. Like, Manon doesn't answer. But then a Kraken witch comes in with a message that terracing calls for aid. Then Gondor will answer. Actually, it's not.
Yeah.
Gondor calls for aid.
Yeah.
Rohan will answer.
Yeah. But I guess this is this the first time we're really understanding the time difference in this book?
Yes, I think so.
We should talk about that next week, because the first time I read this, it was a mind fuck.
Yeah, so obviously Dorian is a little bit ahead of Aedion, right? So he's getting this message now, so, you know, Aedion, we could possibly say that, like, maybe a day or two ago, Aedion and Lysandra and all of them were at the river with Rolf.
Yeah. At this point, you could think that, but then how the rest of the book goes,
yeah,
it has to be much longer.
Yeah. Anyway, we will talk more about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she says terracing calls for aid, and Morath is going to be upon Orinth within a week. And Glennis asks her, "What say the Queen of Witches?" And Manon, to her credit, she doesn't say that we're going. She just says that I am going to go. And then Astrid says, "So will I." And then Sorrel says, "The 13 will go." And I'm like, / the 11, because the other two already said they were going.
Yeah.
But also, like, how dare you speak for the rest of them?
Yeah.
Then Bronwyn steps forward and says that the Venora Hearth will go. Then someone else says that they will go until all the leaders of the Great Hearths have agreed to go. And Glennis tells Manon to light the flame of war and rally her host. So she grabs a stick. She uses Glennis's flame, like that flame that Glennis's mother smuggled out of Rhiannon's castle along with the baby. So, like, she takes a stick, uses that flame to light the stick before bringing it to Bronwyn's hearth. And she says her, like, little chant is, "Your queen summons you to war." Yeah. So then Bronwyn takes the stick and lights someone else's hearth. And they say, you know, "So-and-so summoned you to war." And they say, "We will answer it," or whatever. "We will fight." Yeah. Then one of the young scouts grabs the stick with the fire and goes to fly to the next clan, which is, like, not with them, and sort of tell them that the call has gone out. So, like, they're telling everybody by word of mouth that, like, these specific people here, they're all going to war. Are you going to come? Yeah. So Manon and the 13 decide that they need to prepare for war. And the flame goes from clan to clan, not once being put out by wind or rain. And that even witches who had hidden in villages took to the sky.
Yeah. I like this scene, too. I like the scene where, like, they came down from the sky and then people ran, but some took out their cloaks and got their, like, I like the thought of just having witches among us.
Yeah, me too.
Good. Great.
So we go to Aelin's point of view. The first time we're actually getting her point of view since she passed out. So she wakes to Rowan beside her and knows that she is home. But she's been asleep for 3 days. But she felt clear-headed and no nightmare had woken her up. Rowan wakes up next and calls her a show-off, I guess, for that display of magic. And asks, like, "Was that display the last of your surprises?" And she thinks that she's debating telling him. And in my head, I'm like, telling him what? How dare you? Don't even think about it. Yeah. But she does tell him that she sent letters when they got to the port, like, ages ago. That she sent them to Rowan's uncle and some other fae called Essar. Yeah. Aedion is telling them about Maeve's plans and is trying to, like, she's trying to convince those people to disband Dormanel's army and kick Maeve off the throne. Yeah. And she insinuates in the letter that Maeve is Valg. And then she just says, "Okay, that's it. I'm out of secrets now." Yeah. He asks if she could possibly summon that much firepower again. But she says she doesn't think so because it requires her being contained by the irons. Yeah. And she admits to him that the fires she had tunneled deep into to get had been for Maeve, but now she just wants it all to be over. The war, the gods, the Wyrdkey, like, she just wants everything finished. And Rowan really hates that she feels that way because he wants her to feel happy and loved regardless of the situation they're in. But he tells her that they will make sure the Kagan goes north to Terrasen, and that when they win this war, they will see about a lock. So Rowan really doesn't want to take this defeat lying down. So, like, even though Aelin is like, I'm done, I just want to get it over with, Rowan is not done fighting. And I like that.
Yeah.
So, Aelin, like, they're just lying in bed, I guess, and, like, she starts playing with her power, and she starts playing with the water droplet of magic that she has. And she just lets it wash over her, and she's worried that when the lock takes everything, would it take this most precious piece of her power? And I just called that a bit of foreshadowing because it's very obvious.
Yeah, that's fair.
So they start to have sexy times, but they're interrupted by Aelin's bladder. Aelin's like, oh, I want to do this, but I really have to pee. So,
just kind of funny.
I mean, valid point, though, because I feel like they never show that in romance books.
Yeah. Also, they've been asleep for like 3 days, and she's like, yeah. And then she's like, oh, no.
So they head out, because I guess they have to find a bathroom. And they hear soldiers speaking in whispers about, like, where Rowan and Aelin have been, and, like, sort of how dangerous they are. So they head to the, like, I guess the office to meet with Chaol, Fenris, Gabriel, and Chaol's dad. Yay!
We love that.
Nezrin, Hussar, and Sartak are also there. Sartak? Oh, and Cashin. And Rowan asks them where they would like to go next. And they just flat out say that we're going north to Terrasen. And they say, if only to repay Aelin for saving
every fucking person that has ever been in this book.
Yeah. For saving everyone.
Yeah.
So they're trying, like, I guess they're all standing around an old map, and they're trying to figure out which way to go. And they're troubleshooting because they say, well, if we go north along the mountains, they'll pass the ferrying gap. And they have no idea what Erewhon has in store.
Yeah.
So, Chaol mentions that he sent out messages to the wild men of the Fangs to see if they know of any secret ways through the mountains. Because, like, it's sort of, there's no good option.
Yeah.
And the wild men have come back and said, yes, we do. But there is a price for their information, and that price is territory. And it just so happens to be Anielle that they would have to pull from.
Yeah.
And Chaol's dad is like, no, they're savages, they don't deserve it.
Yeah. And I was kind of surprised at that word being in it.
What word? You don't want to say
savages? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so I obviously, I read this a while ago, so I forgot about that word, but yeah, you're right. Although I do wonder if it was specific to, like, sort of highlight the parallels of, like, people settling in a place and then the land being taken, and then, like, the people who took the land deciding that you don't deserve your own land back. Like, I wonder if it's that sort of a
100%
commentary on politics and on that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. But I was also, like, it's different, too, I think, because, especially your parts, I'm listening to them instead of reading them, because I'm reading other books, so I'm like, I'll just listen to Kristen's parts and read and listen to sometimes my parts as well. But it's just, like, not a word that we really say anymore because it is 100% discrimination against Indigenous people in Canada and the States and Australia and a bunch of other places. Like, it's everywhere. But it's definitely, it was a term that has been used to mean that. So I was just like hearing it, I was like, woo.
It's like, okay, there you go.
But it's also like, it's the same thing of like, it's not a good man saying it. No. It's not like Chaol saying it. It's like his dad saying it. We're supposed to know he's bad. And the whole point is, he's shitty towards them. Yeah. So like, it's not surprising he would say something like that. But
Aelin. So, like, they're all in this meeting, and Chaol's dad is like, absolutely not. I'm not giving them any land. And Aelin's just like, dude, hey, remember how you're the hand to the king? And Anielle is technically a territory in Aelin. So, like, technically, you could speak for Dorian and give the land on his behalf and just, like, completely fuck over your dad, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And Chaol's dad is like, oh, you idiot. Like, I can't believe you would say that. Like, you're the worst.
Yeah.
And Aelin's like, dude, I just, like, stopped a wave and, like, consider this repayment. Like, I just stopped a wave that, like, saved your city. But his dad says, that wave destroyed half my city. So, like, he was worried about the structures and the buildings and the money it's going to take to rebuild, more so worried about the people that were saved. So, like, again, he's just an asshole.
Yeah, 100%. He's not a good person.
Right. So then she tells him that they're going north, and he is not getting in their way. And, like, God help the person that tries to get in between Aelin and Terrasen.
It's like, did you not see what she did to the wave? Because you're next.
Yeah. I know, I would be like, yes, I'm so sorry. Please excuse me, Your Majesty.
I was wrong.
Yeah. The route they do plan to take will unfortunately lead them past Endovier, which Aelin is finding stressful.
Yeah, of course.
Hussar then asks Chaol if Yrene is close to done. And he says, no, there are too many, and they would be here for weeks. And Aelin's just like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
Yeah, of course.
And he's like, oh, she's healing Valg soldiers. And Aelin's like, what the fuck? What?
Yeah, of course she is. Like, this is a revelation for her. She didn't read Tower of Dawn.
Someone needs to get her a book. Like, maybe they could have audiobooked it while she was in captivity, like...
Exactly.
Being tortured. I mean...
That's a good pause, and I liked it a
lot. So, Aelin wants to go check this out. So they go find Yrene healing a soldier, and she explains to them what she does, and then she demonstrates. And Aelin actually says, like, well, okay, well, what do you do with the soldier once they're healed? And then they say that they interrogate them through torture.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been tortured enough.
Yeah.
Because, like, and they're trying to see where their allegiances lie, which I understand. But, like, Yrene literally dives into the deepest part of that person.
Yeah.
And they literally say in a little bit that if Yrene finds by diving into them that the person she's dove into wanted the possession and asked for the ring or the collar or whatever, they don't even bother saving that person. They just, like, kill them. So, like, obviously anybody that gets past the we're gonna take the Valg out of you process can't be that terrible, but yet we're gonna torture you anyway because we're in a war.
But, like, just because they asked for a collar or like, was there incentives given to people? Like, what was their life like before? Like, I just don't think you can judge someone for being like, I decided to take this because maybe their life was so shitty before and they were starving. They were on the streets of Rifthold and like there was nothing for them. And they were like, maybe with this I can make some money and then be fine. Like, I don't know. It just seems like it's very black and white of like, well, I guess it's not because there is no white either. There's black and then there's gray. Like it seems wild.
Yeah. But I guess the way they bring it across in this is like if they knelt for Erewhon, like if they bent the knee for Erewhon. Like yeah. I think that they would be able to see a distinction between like being so unhappy or so like poverty stricken that you felt you had no choice versus willingly accepting a vow.
Yeah. I just, in either case, would prefer that afterwards they killed me than to torture me after I was tortured with that.
Yeah. But I guess they're trying to see like if what they're saying is true. So
yeah.
Sure.
Wild.
Yeah. They then say that after they've tortured them, if that person wants to come and fight for them on their team, there's a vigorous vetting process that they go through, and then they're allowed to join the army and fight with the foot soldiers, like the lowest of the low.
Yeah. But it's also like, I recently reread The Hunger Games, but I'm like, if you just kept your mouth shut for long enough, and like, I get that some of them can get inside of your head-ish. Like, I don't really understand Irene's magic that she can get inside people's heads. Like, can she do that when they don't have a Valg in them?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. But yeah, don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a bad guy and you just fight your way up, and you just take them down from the inside. Even if you're just a foot soldier, you're getting all the information.
That's true. That is 100% true. So Irene finishes healing the soldier, and the black smoke, like, exits his mouth and dissipates, and the man just looks at them and says, thank you. And they can all tell, oh, he's human again. So they're like, oh,
so then they torture him.
Yeah.
Which is, like, wild. He's like, thank you so much. And they're like,
brace yourself, lad.
Brace yourself, lad. Yeah, 100%.
So, after that, Aelin and Rowan go for a walk on the battlefield, and they're just collecting weapons, anything they could use. And Aelin suggests that maybe Irene could heal Erewhon or Maeve, but since they technically didn't infect other host bodies, it's slightly different. Like, they don't know if Irene can, like, jump in and heal them, because what is there to heal? Like, they are their own vessel.
Yeah. Like, if Erewhon was still in Parrington, 100% you could do it, but now he's in his own whatever.
He's his own form. So, Aelin also, like, doesn't think that she could ask that of Chaol or Irene to put her that close to either of them while pregnant. And in my brain, I'm like, you can't ask that of Chaol. I'm sorry. It is not up to him. I don't care if he has, if that baby is half his. It is. But right now, it is Irene. It is her body. And if she decides she wants to do something about it, she should. Has nothing to do with
her body, her choice.
Yeah. Like, I'm so annoyed that... And I'm annoyed that she brings up Chaol first.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
Even if it was reversed, and she was like, oh, I could never ask that of Irene, and, like, think what it would do to Chaol, like, I think I would be better instead of her being like, oh, I couldn't ask that of Chaol or Irene. It's like, hello?
Yeah. I get that it's supposed to be like, they have forgiven each other. And I'm like, have they, though? And why? And also, ew.
Yeah. Anyway, so I will say that, like, Aelin does feel like Irene is sort of the ray of hope, that she might not have to forge the lock at all. And maybe she wouldn't have to sacrifice herself. Because if they can destroy Erewhon and just keep the keys...
Yeah.
Would they...
What do the gods have over them?
Yeah, what do they even need to do? Like, you know...
Yeah.
The main reason for forging the lock is to get Erewhon out.
Which is a great... Yeah.
But if they
it's a great thought.
Need that... Yeah.
Yeah.
So she asks Rowan if he could bear to let her do it. Because Rowan is sort of on our side. She's like, oh, I couldn't bear to ask Chaol or Irene to, like, do that when Irene is pregnant. And Rowan's like, it's her fucking choice. She's an adult. Like, if she wants to do this, she should do it. And he's doing that with everybody. She's like, oh, I could never ask Dorian. And he's like, if Dorian wants to do it, let him fucking do it.
Yeah, he's like, give people choices for their own bodies.
Yeah. But so she's like, well, could you bear to let me do it if I was pregnant? And he's just like, actually, even if it damned the world, I couldn't let you do it. And I'm like, oh, you're like, but that's besides the point.
She and the babies still live in the world, though. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather, at the beginning of the apocalypse, go out trying to stop it than to have to try to live through it. Like, I'm not that kind of girly.
Yeah. Agreed. He did say, like, he says, gods help us. And for some reason, I don't even know why, it doesn't even really explain it, that makes her remember the books of word marks that Chaol and Irene brought with them from the Torah Chesme, or Sesme, or whatever.
Just because she's trying to find something in them to help her get out of giving up her life.
Right. So she wants to see them.
Yeah.
So they go back, they look through all of them, looking for any useful spells that might allow Aelin and Dorian to live, but they just find, like, household spells. But they do find
which, like, is super helpful.
Yes. They do find
Share
one
them.
that opens portals to other places in this world, similar to Fenris's power, but that's really it. So, like, obviously we're talking about it now. That means that it's gonna end up being used down the line, because why would it be mentioned if it's not gonna get used?
Exactly.
Then we go to Chaol's point of view. He's meeting with his father, who's pissed about him giving up the land. It's only a few acres, like, it's not that much.
Yeah.
And he's just imploring Chaol not to give it to the wild men. And he's like, I will bargain with you to not give it to them. And he was like, do you want to know what your brother, Taryn, wrote to me? Because, like, that's how he found out that his wife and Taryn had left. It's because Taryn left him a note. And he was like, don't you want to know what the note says? And I really love it.
Yeah. But he doesn't even, like, he doesn't bargain well for this note.
No, he does not. But, like,
that's fine.
He does tell him what the note says. He says, Taryn wrote in the note that he hopes Anielle burns and their father with it. And I'm like,
hilarious.
Oh my God. Like, obviously it's not hilarious if innocent people die, but, like, he is
of course.
So extra.
Yeah, but it's also, like,
got a flair for the dramatic.
We've seen how bad his dad was in Tower of Dawn to Chaol. So, like, how much worse was he to the child that stayed?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that story because I don't want to cry too much. But I feel like that is a heartbreaking story.
It definitely is. So his dad is, like, pissed that Taryn feels that way about Anielle, because I guess the dad's biggest, like, concern is having somebody from his line continue on to, quote-unquote, care for Anielle and protect it. But obviously we're talking about its prosperity, its financial prosperity, not its health and happiness.
Yeah.
He then shows Chaol a trunk full of letters from his mother, and sort of the reason she left him in the first place. She found them, like, right before she left. They are all letters addressed to Chaol, and I guess she would give them to the dad to send, and he would not send it. And I'm like, dude, you, by saving it, you sort of shot yourself in the foot with that one.
100%, yeah.
Like, why would you save it? Anyway, so he made the mom think that he sent them to Chaol, and Chaol just never deigned to respond. But from Chaol's point of view, he thought his mom never wrote to him, and just was equally mad at him for leaving. And he asked his dad, like, why would he do this?
I do wonder why Chaol never did send any message at all to his mother, or did those get intercepted as well?
I would assume they were also intercepted.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. There was none of, like, oh, this is why she didn't answer me. It was more like, oh, this is why she didn't write to me. And I'm like, was it her responsibility to solely write to you, or should you also write to her? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
But I'm assuming if any note he sent to his mom, the dad, if the mom had to give the letter to the dad to send, I would assume the mail would also come back through him as well.
Yeah, and there was also, like, obviously he had someone working in the mailroom, but maybe his letters are also in there. Yeah, that's what it is. They're in a castle. They got a mailroom. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So he asks his dad, like, why he did that. Like, why would he do that and not let him have a relationship with his mother? And he just said he needed to show Chaol that there are consequences for walking away from his birthright. So, stupid.
Yeah.
Chaol then tells his dad, I love this, to keep the letters, that he doesn't make bargains with bastards. Yay.
Yeah. And I do appreciate where this storyline goes with his mother, so, like, I accept it.
Yeah. So Chaol gave the wild men a few acres in South Anielle to his father's rage, and 2 days later, a small unit of wild men arrived in Anielle near where the dam broke, to lead them through the mountains. And they are very specific in mentioning and bringing up that these were Cain's people. And they were like, Chaol was like, I really need to make sure I don't mention that I killed Cain so they get mad. They don't get mad. Like, he really didn't want to mention, oh, sorry, I killed one of your people. Not the fact that, like, he was infected by Valg or something, like...
Yeah, or that his father has killed so many of them. Like, I don't know. I just think it's silly. And it comes up again. But I'm like, literally, his father has been at war with them forever. And has killed so many. And you're worried about Cain, who was probably a bully there, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's something.
It is something. So the plan is for half the army to march on the east side of the mountains to draw the army out of the ferrying gap so that Aelin and her half the army could sneak past them on the other side. And Aelin just felt really relieved to be going home. She knew it would take them 3 to 5 days to get to Terrasen. And she was like, soon it's all going to be over. And she was so relieved to be heading home to Terrasen that she releases some of her power and she lights herself like a beacon on her horse so that, like, the entire army marching behind her and marching sort of even in the opposite direction could see her, like, lit up and on her way. It's a nice image to, like, leave off with.
Yeah. Especially since, like, I feel like this is the point where, from her point of view, it starts just skipping days and days. Well, it already has been. Like, in the beginning, they skipped a bunch of days. But from now on, like, the next time we see them, it's like 3 days later.
Yeah.
And we're only just catching up to where Aedion and stuff are. But yeah. So, we go to Dorian's point of view now. And he flew to Morath. And then he becomes a crow to blend in. And there are a lot of witches around, which is not surprising. And he actually thinks to himself that he hid the keys in a hill because taking them with him would have been stupid. And you're like, yeah, can you imagine if you took the keys to Morath?
Yeah.
Everything would be over.
Yeah. But also, I feel like he needed to hide them better.
Yeah, I do too. And when I heard that, he was like, I just hid them and threw some dirt over them. And I didn't put a marker there because then someone might find them. And I'm like, why didn't you leave them with Manon?
Or bury them separately.
Oh, yeah.
Hide them separately.
Yeah.
But
yeah, having them this close at all, I'm like, wouldn't they be able to sniff it out? Like, I don't know. But anyway, so he flies to a servant door and then becomes a mouse and squeezes himself under a door. And this whole time, he tells us constantly that he's going off of a mental map that Manon gave Aelin. And I'm like, that seems wild. How can you pay attention to that mental map as much as they're, like, playing it that he is? But fine. But his whole plan is that he's going to start in Erewhon's tower because that's the most likely place to find the key. So he climbs there, and then he feels something. And he sees a servant run by and tell a guard that they're not sure what's going on. And he decides his best bet is to go to the kitchen because that's where all the gossip is. So he goes there, and then there's a cat, and he's like, oh shit, I'm a mouse. But the cat doesn't notice him, and everything's fine. And then 2 women come back and say that they, like, brought food to the council room, but they weren't there yet. And another one says, good, or you might be lunch. And he's like, well, I guess I should go to the council room. So he does. And he runs into the council room, like, with a hooded figure that goes in. And he just immediately decides, against everybody that's ever talked to him ever, that he should try to kill Erewhon.
Like,
this is a terrible plan. So his plan is he's going to hit him with his magic, turn back into human, and then kill him with a sword. And you're like, ooh. But he's like, he's responsible for the collars, he's responsible for Sorja, he's responsible for everything bad that has ever happened in the world. And you're like, I understand where you're coming from. But not a good plan.
Yeah.
But this is also the first time he's actually seeing, like, blonde hair, golden eye Erewhon. And he's like, holy shit, that's not Parrington.
You're kidding.
And he has no weapons, so he's like, I could fight him because he's a cocky prince. But he can feel, like, the vowedness exuding from him. And he thinks he needs to strike now. But then Erewhon says this is an unexpected delight. And the figure he ran in with pulls down her hood and asks if he knows why she came. And he says, is there any other reason you'd visit Morath, Maeve? And I think the first time I read it, I was like, what the fuck? Maeve's here? I think I was pretty shocked the first time.
Yeah, this whole section, though, I found really, like, I found it a bit, like, convenient.
Yeah, and I was also like, what is happening? But I have more thoughts on it now that I have read it this time. But anyway, we immediately, of course, jump over to Aedion's point of view, because we got to drop a bomb and then leave. So they make it to Orinth, and he thinks, just about Orinth in general, that the walls are so high that they say that giants placed them, and Aedion wishes that giants came, or the old wolf tribe and the lost fae of Terrasen showed up. This is literally the second time, and it's only this time that I've been reading it that I noticed, but this is the second time that he's brought up the lost fae of Terrasen and the wolf tribe.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's brought them up twice and been like, I wish they would show up. And I'm like, interesting. No spoilers. So then he thinks, like, they all made it here, but Ansel is, like, super silent, and he knows her horror and guilt. But he then thinks, like, Ilias is currently comforting her.
The silent assassin.
Yeah.
The guy who doesn't talk.
Yeah, but she also betrayed his father.
Yeah.
In Assassin's Blade.
Yes.
But also, I was like, last week, or earlier this week, it actually was, I don't know, I felt something between her and Rolf for a millisecond, and I was like, that is it.
Yeah.
But I think, like, Sarah J Maas read it, and then she was like, oh no, I can't stick her to one. I'm just gonna...
Yeah, why not?
Keep y'all guessing. And I'm like, I respect it.
Why can't she have more than one?
Well, she can.
Why can't she have medallions?
It's Pride Month. She can have anything she wants.
It's true.
So yeah. Then Aedion thinks, obviously because he's thinking of her people, that there's nowhere for the people in Orinth to flee to. And he also thinks it's his fault that so many of them lost their lives, like, and the ones that are still alive lost their loved ones, and that they will likely die. And then he's like, but at least we have the high ground, which always makes me think of Star Wars. There's no other. Having the high ground, that's all it makes me think of.
Yeah, I just can't do anything but eye roll at Aedion at this point.
Yeah. So they meet with the lords, of course. And it's your usual gang of Darrow, Sloane, Gunnar, Ironwood. But Murtaugh's there, and we love Murtaugh. So, of course, Darrow asks where Killian is, and Aedion says that he's bringing the rest of the army and asked him to go along for him. Which, obviously isn't true. And Darrow says that they must have this guy to thank for the lucky retreat, and it's Rolf. And Rolf introduces himself as a privateer, a commander in Her Majesty's Armada, and heir of the Mycenaean people. And the lords are like, I thought they were all dead. And he's like, obviously not, and we've come to fulfill an old debt. And Darrow says that they have the gods to thank for that. And God fucking love her. Lysandra jumps in, and she's like, no, you have Aelin to thank for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
Snaps for that. So good. And Darrow's just like, oh, you're not pretending today. But Lysandra says that everyone here came for Aelin, not for him. And they are the Queen's Armada, and he, Darrow, is not a part of it. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Why are...
And can I just say that, I'm unsatisfied with how Darrow's storyline is resolved.
Yeah.
I want him to get a comeuppance. The same as I want Aedion to have a comeuppance. But everybody just wants peace.
I'm less upset Mostly because of this scene. This scene kind of... Okay, we'll get to it. But, so, Darrow's obviously an asshole. But he says that he immediately, like, you're dismissed. And Aedion cuts in to be like, you can't, what the fuck? And we're like, shut up, Aedion, she doesn't want you to defend her.
And you kicked her out of a tent in the freezing cold. You don't get a say.
Yes, exactly. But then Murtaugh's like, someone here really wants to see you. And we figure out that Evangeline is here. And Lysandra's like, well, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I owe nothing to... Well, not nothing. Obviously, she loves Aelin to bits. But she's like, I'm going to see Evangeline. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Which 100% appreciate. But then Aedion says that Lysandra fought on the front of every battle and none of them did. And I think this is the moment that, like, SJM is like, we're supposed to, like, feel a little bit of what Darrow is feeling.
No, thank you.
But Darrow says, to be too old to fight while younger men and women die is not as easy as Aedion thinks. And Aedion just thinks, yeah, tell that to the people who died. Which is, like...
Valid.
Yeah, completely valid, but it's also... He doesn't say it. And I'm like... I get where Darrow's coming from, but I'm like, you don't need to be this much of an asshole. But anyway, they discuss their plan, but we actually don't, like, get anything about it. We just get... And 2 hours later... Aedion follows Lysandra's scent to the throne room. And it's just her in there alone. And he thinks it looks completely different to what he remembers. And Adelin burnt the stag throne and, like, pulled away all the gold and the riches from the room. And Lysandra says she didn't realize Adelin wrecked this place so thoroughly. And then she says that deep down she thought that they would see her, obviously Aelin, sitting here. And I'm like... So, she thought, obviously, as we all do, still do in this book, that Aelin would live and come back. She never thought that they actually would have to breed him like a fucking mare to get a child to pretend bullshit. Like, she thought that Aelin would get back here. Like, they weren't taking away... It pisses me off so much.
That Aedion made such a big deal about something that was like contingency plan F.
Yeah.
It wasn't A, B, C, D, E, or E. It was plan F.
Yeah. And then, well, she says, even with the lock and all of it, and Aedion says he thought so too. And I'm like, you thought she'd be sitting here, but still threw her out on her ass in the snow? What?
Yeah.
What?
He's a dum-dum.
Yeah. I'm like, this is where I can't with him and any of the arguments about him anymore. So, we pop on over to Dorian's point of view. And it's basically Maeve and Erewhon talking to each other in this whole part. But Maeve is just like, you don't know who I am? And Dorian's like, oh, I wonder if Aelin's here. Like, she's been captured by Maeve. Maybe she's here. And, but Maeve says that her and Erewhon have been millennia apart, and he's forgotten his sister-in-law. And Erewhon is just like, what the fuck? And he says that he should thank her because without her betraying his brother, he wouldn't have found this world. And now he's primed to conquer it. And then he asks her why reveal herself now, because she's his enemy. And she's just like, maybe I'm not your enemy. But she says that she married his brother knowing what he was. And she says maybe she should have married him when he offered. So this kind of goes back to one of the first few weeks when she was talking to Aelin about, like, how much power she had and getting proposed to by all the kings. But she says that she's willing to help him conquer the continent. The continent. And he asks why. And she says that her people betrayed her and her army won't march for her. And she's no longer queen.
Yikes.
And I'm like, how, though?
The strongly worded letters really helped.
That's exactly what happened. But I'm also like, she was able to make them believe there was a third sister in the mix. Can't she just, like, fuck their minds over again? Like, how does she...
Yeah. I'm assuming that was a really heavy-duty spell.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Erewhon is just like, it's Aelin's fault, right? And Maeve is like, well, I had her contained, and I planned to bring her to you, but she's free now, and she turned influential people against me. And you're like, of course she fucking did.
Yeah.
And she also says that Aelin is likely on this continent already, and Erewhon says that she's in Anielle using her power carelessly. And Maeve says when Aelin turned Dorian on her, she decided to join Erewhon. You're like, that makes sense. Dorian obviously is pumped that Aelin is alive, and she's in Anielle, so he's like, is Chaol there too? And you're like, of course he is, because they are fucking in love. So Maeve says that Aelin will come for her if she survives Erewhon, and she doesn't want that. So that's like the main reason for this alliance. And he asks why she didn't just kill her, but Maeve says Erewhon wouldn't have, like, killed her. He would have tried to turn her too, and he just doesn't say anything, so it's obviously true. And Erewhon asks if she expects him to believe her, and she says that she has her power, and then she opens a hole in the floor, which is like a portal, and says she has something else. And a Stygian spider bows to him. And he's just like, what am I going to do with a Stygian spider? But she says it isn't a Stygian spider, it's a KoA, and they are loyal to her. So she just opened a portal. So she opened this portal from Morath to
the southern
right next to the Coggin. So, like, it's fuck, if we had someone that could open this portal, the Coggin's army wouldn't have had to travel.
I know, so far. But actually, she does address that, and she says she can't keep a portal open that long.
Yes. But it's also like, shit. So, yeah. It is just another instance of showing portals because of foreshadowing. So Erewhon asks what use he has for them, and she says that he's had difficulty finding people powerful enough for the Valg, and then she brings up the Coggin's daughter, the princess who survived, and she says that he can put the remaining 6 Valg princesses in the spiders, and Erewhon asks if they would allow it, and the spider responds and says it would be their honor. And Maeve says that she'll let him consider the offer, and he says what he'll tell his brother when he reunites with him. And she's just like, oh, do you plan to see your brother? And he says it's why he's done all of this, is to impress his brothers. And she says that he can... I'm just like...
He's almost like... Okay, so...
Little brother energy.
Yes, but also, like, I want to say, like, he's such a good brother.
But it's just like... I don't know. It's just not a good enough villain arc for me.
It's not a good enough reason to, like, want to kill an entire, like, world of people?
Yeah. Imagine. I just
want my brothers to be proud of me.
I know. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But Maeve says that he can tell Orcus that she grew tired of waiting for him to come home from his conquest, and she would have much rather joined him. And then Erewhon says, like, he'll think on it and she can stay. So she goes to, like, find her room, and Dorian, like, runs along in his little mouse form and hides under her cloak and just follows her all the way to her room, which I don't know why he does that. Like, he could easily have just turned off at any point, but he doesn't. And she gets to her room, and then she asks if he's going to hide in that form all day. And then Dorian tries to, like, run under the door, and she steps on his tail and says he's not a good spy, King Dorian. And we're like, oh, shit.
Oh, no, and then he's been got.
Yeah. So then her magic holds him in a net, and she takes her foot off of his tail and then spears into his mind. And his magic, spoilers for Akhtar, no, her magic, sorry, sounds 100% like Rhys's magic.
It does, yeah.
In this entire part.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is interesting. But she spears into his mind, and he has to use his ice to, like, put a shield on his head and basically, like, frosts the room. And she's like, that's overly dramatic. And he's like, I kept her out. Yay.
Yeah. But, like, he didn't have the finesse. So
no,
she's
not at all.
She's like, oh, you poor dear.
Basically. But he does think, and I think this is a clue that I missed the first time because I was just reading it so fast trying to find out what the fuck happened. But he thinks that her magic requires a courtier's, like, touch to, like, win the fight against her, basically. So he shifts into himself, and she calls him handsome, and he asks how she knew that it was him. And she says that she saw him in Aelin's memories, but she didn't know that he could shift. And then we get that, like, also, she's been talking to Cyrene, because Cyrene controls all the Stygian spiders. Cyrene's also dead. She was the one that was a shape-shifting spider. So she, the shape-shifting spider from a few weeks ago that Dorian killed,
right,
was a leader of all of the Stygian spiders, and she could whisper to spiders and it would all get back to Maeve. Okay, cool. Great. But Cyrene told Maeve about Dorian, and she also told the matrons how to find them, and that's how they got to them last week, I think. But Maeve also says that he's a long way from Manon's bed. And he lays his hand on his sword to kind of, like, be menacing, but also to just tell if she's lying.
Yeah. He always does that. He always has to have his hand on the fucking sword. And I'm just like, can you just, like, read the room, dude? Like, just use body language like most people.
Yeah. And also with somebody like this who, like, after this interaction, you're like, she for sure understood. Like, she knows.
Yeah.
So, yeah. She tells him that, like, oh, you have Damaris. Aelin learned to share. And Maeve says that Aelin acquired quite the trove, and Dorian visibly flinches. And she's like, yeah, I know about that too. And you're like, the keys. She knows that Aelin has the keys. Obviously.
If Aelin doesn't have the keys, Dorian has the keys.
Well.
Actually, right now the ground outside has the keys.
Exactly. And so Maeve says that she does know about them, and the sword warms up, so he knows it's the truth. And she asks where they are now. And then Maeve tries to, like, spear into his head, and he uses his ice and the whole room frosts and whatever. And he says he's not foolish enough to let her in his head or tell her where they are. And she says that he wants what she wants, and that makes them allies. You're like, okay.
Sure it does.
You just tortured Aelin for the beginning part of this book, and we're supposed to believe right now that you want an alliance with our golden shadow daddy boy.
Especially after just saying that you wanted an alliance with the dark shadow daddy boy.
Yeah. Love it.
She just likes a shadow daddy. And,
I think she does.
Like, who could blame her?
Nobody. Nobody can blame her. So Dorian says, like, he would never give the keys to her, and she says that she wouldn't conquer the world. And this is what we were saying, God, it's been weeks, but it might have been 2 weeks ago, it might have been 3, who knows. Yeah. But remember when she had Aelin and we were like, she's a girl's girl? Like, she's not trying to conquer this world. She's just trying to not be taken over.
She's just trying to live her life, guys. Just leave her alone. And
like, she's not doing great things with her life, and maybe someone should, like, rein her in. But she's not trying to take over the world.
Can I just say, though, can you imagine being this, like, wait. Imagine being this badass bitch. You got a circle of hot dudes that have vowed to serve you, right?
Yeah.
And you are actually living your best life. Then some, like, Gen Alpha, like, little skitty bitch, like, comes up. She's, like, half your age. She, like, bats her
half?
Well,
she's, like, a fucking 1,000.
She bats her eyelashes, and then half of your boys that were all over you are now all over her.
Yeah.
And not necessarily sexually, but, like, enamored.
Yeah, no.
Like, you'd be pissed off, too.
No, I can't. Yeah.
You'd be pissed off, and you want to ruin her a little bit, too. Would I resort to torture? Maybe not.
Maybe. I get it.
Yeah.
No, I will say.
Are we Team Maeve?
She is the most defensible villain I have met in an SJM book.
Yeah. True story.
I think full pass. Like, she actually, like... No, she actually just has a reason. Like, Erewhon being like, my brother. I'm like...
It's like, what, you gotta show off to your brother? Like, what the fuck is that?
Honestly, if I had this much pressure for my older sibling, I'd be like, how nice to be away from that I don't have to worry about it. I wouldn't be trying to get them over there, be like, look what I did.
No,
brother, look what I did here.
Come over and he's gonna kick it all down, like if you built a little Lego castle. No,
sand castle.
Like,
exactly. I like that you said Lego castle and I said sand castle.
Just goes to show you, you go outside.
You can take Lego outside. And you can take sand inside. Okay, so she's saying she wouldn't conquer the world. And it's not the first time we heard this. And I honestly don't think she would. I think the book could have ended differently if we'd, like, made an alliance with Maeve and then worried about her later and, like, backstabbed her.
But, like, also, I feel like this could have been Dorian's time to, like, pull an Aelin and, like, actually, like, make an alliance. Not necessarily, like, the one that we're going to talk about shortly, but, like, some sort of alliance, and then have Maeve, like, double-cross Erewhon in the end and have it be this, like, super twist.
Yeah.
And then Maeve would go back to Dornell and lick her wounds and, like, repent and see the error of her ways.
And be fine with her hot people that are still attached to her. Because she still has people attached to her. It's not like they're all gone.
Yeah, she's still got that hot owl.
Yep. Which comes up.
Does come up.
So, she says that she would make sure that Erewhon and his brothers never returned. Oh, this is another thing. Do we think that eventually Rhys is going to be one of these brothers?
No.
Because we hear a lot about Orcus.
But they have names.
Mantis, yeah. But that doesn't mean he didn't move to a different place and change his name.
I don't think so, because, like, we know how Rhys was, like, born, and, like, his mom, and he was really close with her, and, like, he's been a dick. He's been a fake dick. He's never been a real dick.
Yeah, but I guess it's the same as, like, you can look at the way Maeve's ruled and be like, she seemed fey. She didn't seem like a full-on Valg dick. I guess maybe one of his ancestors, his dad or his dad's dad, like...
I could see that.
Something like that.
I could see that.
That could happen. But yeah, I was just like, why do we keep... It's Erewhon, Orcus, and Mantis. And, like, we don't get a whole lot about Mantis. We get that Orcus is the biggest dick of them all, and Erewhon is, like, a try-hard little brother trying to impress everybody. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if we get anything else about Mantis, but we'll see. Anyway, Maeve says she doesn't want his brothers to ever come back. And the sword warms up, so he knows that that's the truth. And she actually says that Maeve says that she came here because she knew that Dorian was going to come here, and she wanted to make this alliance. And he's like, that's batshit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that's not true.
But it is just batshit crazy to say that. And he's like, but you offered the spiders. And she says it's a small sacrifice. And she has nothing to lose now thanks to his friends. And he's touching the sword during all of this, and it's all true. And I'm just like, so her coming here to meet Dorian is the truth? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
But then I was like, she has to know that the sword tells the truth.
Yeah.
And we do get that a little bit later that she does, and I just forgot it. But it's just wild. Anyway, she does know. We just don't know that right now. Dorian then says that Aelin is skilled at wrecking other people's kingdoms while keeping her own. And this is the moment you're like, what the fuck is happening?
But doesn't he say in his head that...
He's saying what she wants to hear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. And Maeve says that she's also good at letting other people pay her debts. And isn't he here to be the sacrifice? And Maeve says it's a terrible price for either of them to pay. And she also says that Aelin was glad that it was him. And Dorian says that he doesn't blame her. She has a kingdom and a mate. And Maeve is just like, well, you have a kingdom. And Aelin's been free for weeks, but didn't find you. So obviously she's hoping that you'll find the keys and sacrifice yourself. And in this moment, like, his magic slips. And she spears for it. Which is just, like, the same words that she used for Rhys to spear for someone's head.
Yeah.
But she spears for it, but he pushes her out. And he's like, how are we going to be allies if you keep fucking with my head? But she says that she always planned to stop them both from dying. And Maeve says that the gods are actually afraid of them, so why not defy them? And then she says that they could wield the keys to banish the gods and Erewhon and to open a realm into, like, the afterworld so that he could find Sorsha.
What? Can you imagine if he took her up on it and then it was like Manon Sorsha?
Oh my god.
Manon would eat her for breakfast.
Yes, 100%. So he says, well, why don't you want to ally with Aderlin instead and lend her gifts to their side and then become queen? And she's like, surprised by this. And she asks about his promises to Manon, but he says that he didn't make any, and she doesn't want them anyway. And I'm like, she made the promises to him, and he didn't want them. But okay.
But I guess he didn't want them just for the fact that he knew she would eventually resent him for them.
He knows what she wants better than she knows what she wants for herself. But, so she's like, oh, but then Aelin will hate you. And he's like, no, because she needs me as an ally, so she won't turn against me. And Maeve calls him brash and says that she could give him to Erewhon, but he says that she proposed the alliance. So will she kneel to Erewhon, or will she rule with him? And he says that he's knelt and won't do it again. And he lets her see that it's the truth. And he's like, we both came here for a key, and you can leave here with, like, a crown, basically, yeah. And he's like, and we could also just leave here with both, which I love. And then there's a bit of a time jump, and Dorian is Crow, and he's looking around, and he thinks of the dangerous games he's playing to just kind of, like, show that apparently he's not as shitty as we think he could be in this moment. So he goes to a window, and he just sees Vernon, and Vernon is just, like, storming away from a door, and he's like, he used to take my counsel, and now he's refusing it, and he's storming away. But the council room's ajar, so Dorian plans and waits. And then a little while later, Erewhon comes out and says, I thought I dismissed you, Vernon. And it's Dorian. And he says that he came back because he had a question. And Vernon can't help but, like, of course, but want to strike him in this moment, because, of course, that's all he ever thinks. And he asks why he chose this world. And Erewhon says that his brothers and him plan to conquer this world and add it to their trove. And when they arrived here, they got more resistance than they expected, I guess. So he'll make this world into a mirror of their own. And Vernon says that he knows all about brotherly rivalry. And Erewhon just says, like, Vernon killed his brother. But he loves his brothers dearly.
So this is what I mean. He's just a good brother. He loves his brothers. He loved him.
I know. I just, like, do something else, bro. Like, it's just wild. But Vernon asks if he'll decimate all of the people who dwell in this world, and if they'll, like, just die, or if they'll get collars. And Erewhon says that Vernon has never wondered about the people before. Even his niece, the failure that she was. And Vernon says that he'll hunt for her, but Erewhon says the thing she carried is lost to him. And it's a loss that is Vernon's fault. And Vernon asks how to repent. And Erewhon asks if he wants to be made into the monsters here. And he's like, no, thank you, sorry for asking. But he says that he is a servant, and Erewhon basically dismisses him now. But Vernon asks, like, this is such a weird...
It's such a, like, why would you do this, dude?
100%, because he asks if he truly hates them, the humans, Aelin, and Dorian. And you're like, bruh, you can't just... This is such a, like, high school moment of, like, when you three-way, I've never done it, but three-way call someone, and they're on the line, and you're like, what do you think about the third person? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's 100% that. Erewhon says that they would keep him from his brothers, and Vernon says there has to be another way to unite them. And we're all like, yeah, 100%, there should be. There has to be.
But also, like, dude, you're totally ruining it. Like, you're giving yourself away.
100%. It's so stupid. But Erewhon asks where the fun in that would be. And Vernon asks if the former king of Aderlin asked these questions, and Erewhon says he was not as faithful a servant as he would lead you to believe, and look what it cost him. And I'm like, Dorian, you don't need this right now. Why are you asking these questions?
He's just being
so dumb. He is. So Vernon asks if the King of Aderlin fought Erewhon, and Erewhon says he never bowed, not completely. And we're like, oh, so we're getting the truth of, what book was that? Queen of Shadows? The end of Queen of Shadows is when they killed the king? Yeah. So we're getting that he was saying the truth at the end of that, basically. So Erewhon says he finds the questions tiresome, and then he leaves. So Dorian obviously walks away, but then turns into a mouse and goes to talk to Maeve. And she calls him a fool, because he fucking was.
Yep.
And she asks if he planned to kill him, because he would have another collar around his neck, and this alliance won't work if he's sneaking off and being a reckless idiot.
Good point.
100%. And she asks if he found what he was seeking. And he says no. And I'm like, didn't you? Because I think you fucking did. But anyway, we go over to Nesrin's point of view. And they're scouting the Ferrying Gap so they can attack it, like you said in the last bit. And they're just not seeing any signs of the enemy, so they have to get closer and closer, and there's still nothing. And then we jump over to Chaol's point of view. And it's been 3 days of going through the mountains with the Wildmen, and they're showing them the way, and the wastes are to their right, and the wastes just feel, according to Irene, like the lands don't sing there, which I just thought was, like, interesting that, I don't know, I feel like we could have got a update on those, but anyway, the wastes are nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kai, who is a Wildman, says that they'll make it to the gap tomorrow morning, and we get that about 200 of the Wildmen came with them, and they gave them land, and they also want to fight because the witches hunted them this spring, and also a dark-haired woman had an unholy power and, like, burnt a whole bunch of the Wildmen to crisps. And we obviously read the book and saw Manon do it. We know it's Kaltain. And Dorian, Jesus, not Dorian. Chaol thinks it was Kaltain. And we're like, interesting.
Yes.
And obviously he knows she's dead, and we do too, but the Wildmen don't. And then Chaol thinks how he killed a Wildman, Cain.
Oh my god, get over it.
I know, 100%. Almost a year ago. And I'm like, so it's less than a year since the first book.
This entire book has taken place in one calendar year.
Wild.
Especially, like, I just find Heir of Fire is sort of the longest, because, like, that's her whole training montage.
Yeah, it's what, like 2 months, if that? It can barely be. This is 7 books. Each book is less than 2 months. This is the last book, and it's not even been a full year. Wild.
Yeah. Well, and she was kidnapped for 2 months.
Yeah. That wasn't even, like, part of anything. Yeah. It's just, maybe we'll talk about this next week. I don't like the reminders of how long it's been.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense to me, and it pulls me out of the book.
Right.
But that's fine. So, Chaol asks Kai if there's somewhere that they can hide the armies for the night, but Kai says that tonight's going to be the most dangerous night. And Chaol's like, well, we'll have to pray to the gods. And he's like, the gods don't deign to answer here. And you're like, oh shit. So Aelin comes up then, and she's like, what a dramatic guy, right? Which is just kind of funny. But she says that Rowan and the cadre and her are all tunneling into their power, so they'll make sure that nothing harms the armory tonight, and they're going to make sure that they put special gardances over the, like, healing wagon because of
Irene.
And Chaol thinks how super extra happy he is for their magic. And I'm like, you
absolute fucker.
Cunt. Yep. All of the above. Oh, fuck. Good. Great. Good job, Chaol. You've become everything you hated.
I hate him so much.
Yeah. I just, like, when it's, I just can't.
I'm just annoyed because that line was definitely very deliberately put in there.
Oh, 100%.
To demonstrate how much he's grown.
He has not grown. He just cares about somebody that needs protection.
Yeah, so it's fine now. Having magic 100%. And having a lot of it is fine now. They don't have to worry about who's going to check them.
Yeah. At least, and I can't say that I actually feel this way, but at least if he kept his conviction about, like, who's going to check their magic to this point, I would think that he, like, actually cared about that in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, and I know we've talked about it before, but it's just so much, like, but if you give them rights, it's taking away rights from me. And it's like, that's not how rights work.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't with it.
It's very frustrating.
Yes.
He's a frustrating dude.
He is. So, and it only gets even more frustrating for me, I'm not going to lie, because we stay in his point of view for a little bit now, and I just, like... Anyway, so Aelin and Fenris, who is guarding her, leave, because Fenris is basically, like, following her around all the time, which, like, I appreciate, love him, he's the best. But Gavriel actually comes up to talk to Chaol and congratulates him on the pregnancy. And he says, and I don't really know, other than for the point of this scene to happen, but it's just such a weird
I agree with you. Like,
thing.
For Chaol and Gavriel to have the heart-to-heart now, it's sort of weird.
I just didn't need it. But, I don't know. So, Gavriel's just like, says he wasn't granted the opportunity to be there from the start to see his son grow into a man. And Chaol says that he's sorry. And Gavriel tells him, like, that's not why he says it. Like, he said it. He tells him to savor every moment of it. And Chaol says he's guessing that Aedion isn't making it easy on him. And obviously Gavriel says that he has his reasons. Because, like, as much as I'm pissed at Aedion, I think he does have his reasons. Like,
yeah.
His mother was so afraid that they would take Aedion that she didn't want to be helped by Faye when she was dying. Mm-hmm. Because, like, Maeve could have had a claim on him. Like, I don't think that's unreasonable. And I don't think it's unreasonable of him to be pissed either. Like, I don't think people should be pissed at Aedion for how he's
handling this reunification with his dad.
Yeah. Like, I get that we've all seen Gavriel be great. And Aedion has heard about Gavriel be great. But, like, that doesn't mean you're just gonna meet your dad when you're
20
in your 20s and just be like, hey, Dad, you're my best friend now. Like, I think we can give him some grace on this relationship.
That's the
as we're not giving him grace on any other relationship. Yeah. And to be fair, Gavriel is giving him
space.
Gavriel's he's being great, but everybody else, I'm just like, I don't know. Anyway, Chaol says that Aedion is stubborn and hot-headed, just like Aelin, and then starts talking about her like he knows everything about her. And I'm like, and then he says that Aelin and Aedion might be twins because they say one thing but mean something else entirely. I'm like, are you still bitter about your ex? Because that's what this sounds like.
Yep.
But Chaol says to give him time, and he's going to be happy to see him. And then Gavriel's just like, yeah, of course he's going to be happy to see me, because I'm bringing back his queen and a fucking army. Like, he'd be happy to see anyone in that situation. But Chaol says that his father was a bastard, and he never once cared enough. And that's the difference. And Gavriel says, like, if Aedion forgives him. And Chaol says, like, he will forgive you. And then he says in his head that he'll make him. And I'm like,
what sort of
How?
sway do you have over Aedion? You guys aren't even that good friends.
No,
Which
and
is
also
why I'm annoyed with this conversation, because he's speaking for Aedion when, like, I don't think they have a great, like, it's
no,
not
they're
like
not.
They're
It's fucking.
It's not like he's speaking.
They're not at all.
He's not speaking for Dorian. He's speaking for Aedion. What's with all the Ian?
Who?
Dorian.
They're not.
Aedion.
That is a good point. But I'm just like, the only way I can think of him making him is to fight him. And I'm like, well, he'll win. Aedion's going to win. You're not going to make him. How are you going to make him?
Chaol's good, but he's not Captain of the Bang.
But he's not part Fae, gonna settle, gonna, like, fucking cocky bastard. Anyway, I'm like, how are you gonna make him? And I can't. We'll get to it when we get to it. So Gavriel asks how he's so certain. And this part, I guess, this part does kind of tear up my little heartstring. Only a tiny one, in the cold, dark part of my heart, a tiny bit. Because Chaol says that Gavriel is his father, and no matter what, Aedion will want to forgive him. And he thinks the way he wants to be able to forgive his father, even though he doesn't think he can. And he thinks that, like, it's his secret and his shame that he wants to be able to forgive his father. And I'm like, your relationship's not... It's not, like, you could save that at some point. You're going into war, though. You left it maybe not the worst it's ever been.
But, like, I don't know why you... Well, I guess. I don't know, man. I'm a little bit just over... I'm just over it. Forgive him or don't. Just move on.
But I'm also like, it's different. The man that raised you, like Chaol's dad did, to be like, I want to be able to forgive him because of that. And, like, Aedion has never met this man before in his life, and he's coming in and like, hey, I'm your dad. And you're like, that's a completely different relationship. Like, yeah. Meeting your dad in your 20s and having him there up until you're 12 and being a piece of shit, they're different situations. You can't, like, you can compare them, sure. But everybody's life is different. Anyway. Chaol says that Aedion's going to realize that Gavriel did all of this for him. And it, like, none of it was for Aelin. And you're like, okay, let's not shit on Aelin here. And I know that's not the point. And I know that Gavriel did all of this for Aedion. But it's just like, I don't know. And then Chaol says that he wishes he was lucky enough to have Gavriel as a father. And Gavriel says, maybe it's their lot to never have the father they wish, but to still hope that they'll surpass what they are. Like, that's, like, a nice thought, I guess. And then, thankfully, the, like, conversation is shut off because two large shapes approach, and everyone, like, starts, like, getting their bows ready, but Rowan's like, hold your fire, and it's Nezrin and Borte, and Aelin asks how bad it is, but we get that the Farian Gap is actually empty, other than, like, a few fires. So there's, like, a skeleton crew there, basically, but there's nobody there Like, there's no army there. There's nobody to fight.
Right.
And they're like, what the fuck? That's not what we were preparing for.
Well, so their whole, like, idea of, you know, getting them to come out so that they could sneak past is just stupid now. They should have all taken the shortcut.
Exactly. We're like, great. And now Aedion and them are all dying because you took a longer course.
You took the long cut.
Long cut, yeah. But they are like, at least there will be someone there for us to interrogate. Good. So we go over to Dorian's point of view, and he's going around the place in a bunch of different forms for a full week, and every night he's discussing with Maeve, like, what he learned. And she has opened a portal and let 6 spiders, Karen P, come through, and allowed the Valg princesses to inhabit them. And
apparently they're doing a great job.
They are, but he hasn't seen them, which he's happy about. But he's, at this moment, just thinking back on that. So he's, like, somewhere as an animal. And he swears he feels the key sometimes, but he can't get to it. Or he just ends up outside of Erewhon's tower. And it's one of the few places he hasn't searched yet. And I'm like...
Should be the first place you check.
Well, yeah, and it's also the first place he talked about checking. But it's also like, maybe the key is moving if you feel it places. Bet okay. But he goes to, like, a very basement room today, and he finds a stairwell that he's never seen before, so he goes down, and he, like, is following, like, the reek of Valg, and he's like, the key could be down there, I can feel it. And he hears a warning in his head, and it says, turn back. And I'm like, is this a god? Or is this just, like, people making shit up? Like, what? When? How do we know if it's a god?
Oh, as opposed to, like, just his internal... I just took it as, like, his internal clock or
I know.
Magic. I didn't think it was actually somebody warning him.
I didn't either, but then I was like, well, how would you know the difference? Because, like, if he's going to sacrifice, no one's going to find those 2 keys if he doesn't make it out alive, allegedly, because he hid them under a tiny bit of rock. But, yeah, I don't know. So, something tells him to turn back. He doesn't. And there's no guards down here, so he uses magic to see if, like, there's a trap around this door, and he finds it. It's an iron door with 9 ancient locks.
Yikes.
And he doesn't feel anything, so he shrinks into a gnat and flies under the door. And then he sees a sarcophagus, which is Erewhon's tomb, in the middle of the room, and all around it, in, like, shelves on the wall, are wyrdstone collars. And he thinks, like, obviously this is where his father and Parrington came and opened the sarcophagus with the key. And this makes him think of how Erewhon said that his father fought. And that makes him think that, like, what his father said at the end of Queen of Shadows was true, that, like, he tried to not do everything he did.
Yeah.
And Dorian wonders if there are princes in each of the, like, collars already, or if, like, and I don't know how that works. Like, do they, like, attach a prince to a collar right before they put it around you?
Yeah. Well, I
mean, it's an interesting thought.
But I feel like the essence of the Valg have to be in the collar, else how else is it, like, leeching that negative energy?
Yeah. So, basically, Dorian 100% has a PTSD flashback here. Yeah. Which, like, I completely appreciate. I do appreciate, like, a lot of Sarah J Maas's mental health moments in books. But he really has a flashback to when the collar was put on his neck and Sorsha dying, and he's just, like, panicking. And then he thinks, like, he's no better than them, and he's not entirely human. And he's, like, really starting to panic, and then a dark wind pulls him out and under the door and brings him into Maeve's hand. And she calls him a stupid boy, and he's like, shit, she could just crush me in her hand right now and I'd be dead. Which seems insane.
But also,
like, couldn't he...
the fact that she didn't point to Maeve.
I know, but couldn't he, like, he's so tiny, couldn't he just, like, put a shield, or, like, couldn't he be ice? Like, couldn't he put a shield around himself?
Yeah, but I feel like he's probably, like, so small it wouldn't matter. Like, the shield wouldn't help him.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so yeah, she doesn't crush him, and she's, like, super nice to him and keeps her hand open. That's what Maeve being nice is not killing you.
I don't know if I could do that. Like, not kill someone. I do think I could avoid killing someone. I'm more saying if somebody was...
a gnat in your hand?
I don't think I could hold them in my hand. I think I'd be too grossed out.
Yeah.
Of a bug being in my hand.
It depends what kind of bug, but...
It doesn't depend for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm getting better with bugs. I'm doing my best lately. So, she tells him then that their world felt like that every day for her before she left. Mm-hmm. And it's another moment of like...
Maeve.
Yeah, like, I actually feel like she has some points at points. Mm-hmm. So we do a tiny, tiny time jump, and he's back in her room, and he's vomiting, and she says that he saw the horrors of the dungeons and didn't fall ill because he's been in Morath. But he says that the collars affected him. Obviously, PTSD. Yeah. And he doesn't know if he would have got out. And she says the collars do nothing, but the room has bad memories and it snared him, and he let himself be snared.
Yikes.
And that's fair, but I'm also like, it's because he PTSD. Like, yeah. That is a very strong thing.
They just don't know what that means.
Yeah, obviously, yes. And it's obviously everything also in this world is different too, because there are different species, all this shit. But we'll get into something else that is kind of, but not yet in a while. But she says that the collars were one of Erewhon's more brilliant ideas, but it made him arrogant, and that, in her opinion, is why he left Dorian with his father, when he could have brought Dorian to Morath and controlled him there and worked on him earlier. And I'm just like,
good point.
This is not gaining you points in my book. I'm going to tell you that. And then Dorian says that she gave over her spiders knowing what they'd endure. And Maeve says she wouldn't have done it if she didn't need to prove herself. And she looks at Damaris and asks why he didn't verify that claim. So we get that she actually did know the whole time that the sword tells the truth or whatever.
Yeah, but also she does make a comment, and maybe it's a little bit further down, that, like, she's gonna think about those Karen Quee that she had to sacrifice to get here. Like, she's gonna keep them in her mind. And, like, she was like, you have no idea, like, how hard it was for me to do that. So, like, yeah. She's not 100% heartless.
No, not at all. And it's also reasonable for her not to tell him everything at this point. But she tells him that he's different, and she wonders if some of the Val crept into him when he was conceived, and I'm like, that is his biggest fear, please.
Please don't tell him that.
Yeah. And Dorian asks her why Erewhon is doing this, and she says that he's the mildest of his brothers. And he's like, what the fuck? And then he asks, and this is the part that I was like, this is a difference, obviously, between humans and Fae. Mm-hmm. Well, Valg, I guess. But Dorian asks if she had children with Orcus, and Maeve says she didn't allow her body to ready for children, and it was a small rebellion. Which, like, I think Well, I've listened to podcasts. I haven't actually researched it myself, but I think chimps actually in the real world can like stop themselves from becoming pregnant from males that they don't want to be pregnant by.
Really?
Yeah. But in humans,
it's a very common, actually, rape myth.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
The rapists argue all the time. Well, if a girl didn't want it, she couldn't become pregnant.
Yes. And it's actually your chances of becoming pregnant with regular sex that you consent to and rape are exactly the same percentage if you look up the studies. But in other species, there may be some variation, which is why I guess in Fae there's also some variation.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So he then asks about the difference. No, he asks about like the Valg princesses and the princes. Like, are they actually the children of the kings? Because we know there's the three brothers. Like, are all of these princes we've met through this entire series, are they all children of the kings? But she says that some are, some aren't, but much may have changed in the millennia since she left their world. And the princes aren't as strong as they used to be, and that's why Erewhon brought the princesses. And he asks why she left the world. And Maeve kind of like has a moment where she says that she finds it odd to talk to somebody who knows what she is. And he's like, well, what about Aelin? She knew. And she says that, and her answer's a bit confusing to me because she says she wasn't able to infiltrate her mind entirely, just to change small things. And I'm like, but that's not the same thing as like talking to her about who you are truly. But anyway, Dorian asks then why Maeve tortured Aelin. And she says because she would never agree to protect her. And he asks why Maeve doesn't protect herself. And Maeve says fear. Yeah, Maeve says fear. Maeve says Valg only fear some gifts. And then she says she usually keeps a fae with her who has different powers to Aelin to use against the Valg. So we're getting that. Well, I guess we already know, obviously, that healers work against Valg. But Dorian doesn't know that.
Right.
So this is Dorian getting an idea that there's something else that works against Valg that isn't fire.
Correct. He's gonna put it together. What a good boy.
Yeah. And she's basically saying that normally she keeps a fae woman who is like blood sworn to her with her at all times. And we've gotten in the past that she always has an owl with her. So like we could put that together at this point. Maybe.
Yeah.
So he then asks if this is Erewhon's true form, and she says that in a way it is, but that Valg aren't like humans, whose human souls are invisible, but Valg souls have a shape, and then they choose their bodies kind of like clothing, and this is like Erewhon's preferred shape.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm like, I guess. And then he asks if she feels Valg or Fae, and she says she is who she is, but she doesn't want to be like Erewhon. And then she asks if he knows who he wishes to be, and he says he's still deciding.
Mm.
And then Dorian tells her basically, like, he thinks the key is still in the tower, but there's no way in. And I'm like, if you can gnat fly under a door, why can't you gnat fly into the tower? I don't really understand what's keeping him out of the tower if he can be
I thought it was
tiny.
It was more. Oh, didn't he say that like there was no openings, like not even little tiny teeny ones that a gnat could fit through?
But how?
I guess feel like Erewhon stuffed him up with magic.
Maybe, I guess. I suppose. So, he's saying they need to check the tower. And he basically, like, nod, wink, winks, implies that Maeve should seduce Erewhon. So she just, like, magics on a sheer robe with gold thread, like, hiding all the naughty bits. And then she's like, you're not going to like what you see. And then they leave together, and he's like...
all right.
I don't know. He's a bug on the ground or some shit. And they go to his tower, and the guard gets him, and he opens the door. And he's like, we have a meeting tomorrow, sister. And she's like, I didn't come to discuss war. So he tells his guards to leave. And then she
she tries to solicit sex. She
does. And he's like, you're my brother's wife.
Again, what a good brother.
100%. Yeah, that's his entire personality. And that's what I don't like about him. That's his only personality trait. Is like, terrible person and good brother.
Yeah.
Kill everybody and anybody and good brother.
However, he's a great brother. He won't even sleep with his brother's wife.
Won't even. But, so then she shifts into Aelin, and Dorian is like, he can, of course, see the emotion in Erewhon's eyes. Yeah. The fucking Val King. He can see that he wants to conquer Aelin, but doesn't actually want her.
Yeah, sexually.
Yeah. And then Maeve shapeshifts into Manon, and Erewhon wants her in a sexual way. And Dorian's like, shit, I might have to fucking kill him right now because I love her, I guess. Woman. Yeah. So, Manon actually, Maeve, when she's Manon, asks if Manon was his intended queen or just a prized breeding mare. And anyway, he's just like, nope, you're still Maeve. And he, like, shoves all of the want away. And he says that, like, she's his brother's wife. And if she needs release, he'll send someone. Like, fuck. So the next morning, she takes Dorian to the meeting that he mentioned earlier. And Erewhon is just like, you turned away the guy I sent to you. And she's like, yeah, I wanted wine and you sent piss down ale. Obviously, I turned him away. Which is just kind of funny. Yeah. But he was also an enslaved human who was wearing a ring. And she told Dorian that the only reason she sent him away was because he was there. And you're like, it's not great.
But, like, is it true?
Well, yeah, that too, I guess.
She's not crazy about humans, so, like...
Yeah. So Erewhon then asks her what else she's going to bring to this alliance. And she's like, what do you mean? But she asks what he wants, and he asks for the rest of the KoA, and she says they won't all be willing hosts. But he says that they will be soldiers, and they're not going to do a second phase. They're all just going to attack and wipe out everybody who's against them right now. And Maeve says there's still a chance that he's going to have to face Aelin. And she's heard about Anielle and all of that power that Aelin let go was actually meant for Maeve. But Erewhon might not survive that if she can get all that power back again.
Truth.
And, well, yeah. And she says together they could obliterate Aelin and they could keep the spiders in reserve. And Dorian kind of realizes that she doesn't want to sacrifice the spiders. Like, this is the moment that he's like, shit.
Yeah,
like,
she actually cares about them.
Yeah, she cares about them. And then Maeve tells Erewhon that he doesn't know everything about world walking. And he's like, yeah, but I assume you're not going to tell me anything until after we win the war. And she's like, yeah, of course. But she says that she's going to give him a display, but they are too strong to let through a portal, but she can show him his brothers for a moment. So that's basically the end of the week, is she's like, I need some time to prepare, but then I'm going to show you your brothers and you can talk to them for a second.
Wow.
Which is like all he really cares
what
about.
Power.
So. Yeah.
Way
true.
to go, Dorian. Okay, so it's been a long episode, so we're going to wrap it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week we're going to be doing chapters 75 to 90 of Kingdom of Ash. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.